Winter Wonderland. Hello, welcome to Get Gardening. My name is Alan Gray. Now at this time of the year when the leaves are dropping off the trees and everything is becoming bare, the garden looks a bit sparse, but if you've got hedges and you've got topiary, you've got bones. So there's architecturality to look at, but not an awful lot of colour. So what I like to do is on terrace steps or beside gates or doorways, I like to make up a winter pot, just to give me a little bit of colour through the dark months. Now here, we have a really good, nice old terracotta pot. It's even got a bit of algae growing on it, so it doesn't look too new. Now, normally for winter, people think of plants like Cyclamen. Yes, I'm going to use them. Ivies. Yes, I'm going to use them, but not in the way that you probably think I will. I wanted to do something a little bit different, so I've got some plants here that you might not think of using in the winter. And this is one of them. It's a little shrub called Nandina domestica. Now just look at the wonderful colour on that. It's a kind of olivey green and rich red. And that red, it happens when the nights get cooler. The nights cool down, Nandina goes red. So that's one plant I'm going to be using. The other one is this chap here called Andromeda polyfolia. Very rare really, you don't see this very often. Has that lovely very blue, or as they say, glamorous glaucous cast to the foliage. So I'm going to be using that as well. Remember, it likes moist acid soil. And then of course we've got a wonderful pairing here of heucheras. Now heucheras in recent years have been bred to have foliage of all kinds of shades and colours and hues, but they're mainly in dark reds, dark browns, chocolates, coffees, caramels, and dare I say it, luscious lime green. But they're beautiful, they last throughout the winter, they're evergreen, which is exactly what we want. So in my pot, I have got some John Innes number 3. You can use John Innes number 2 or number 1, it really doesn't matter. But the reason I'm using John Innes compost is because that's soil-based. And being soil-based, it'll be much heavier, so it'll make your pot stable. It won't blow over in the wind. And if this blows over, that's an expensive blowout. We don't want that. So here we are. I'm going to put my 3 plants in here. I'm not going to do anything too wonderful because I'm going to fill in between them with all manner of things, as you'll see in a moment. Now, what do you think is best? Shall I go brown or shall I go lime green? I'm going to go brown. We've got a little bit of lime green in here, and that would be repeating the lime green. So we'll put the brown heuchera at the front. Now, I've got a bucket here with some John Innes compost in it, and I'm just going to pack around the sides. Now there's a pot that looks lively, bright, cheerful and welcoming for the winter. Could I leave it like that? Yes, I could, but I'm not going to. Now I'm just going to get some bamboo canes. I'm just going to push them in randomly. I want to make a tripod, and all will become clear in a moment. It's a bit like Blue Peter for adults, isn't it? I should imagine. So there we have 5 bamboo canes roughly in a tripod. Excuse me a moment. Christmas is coming. If you want to buy a gardening friend, it'd have to be a good friend because it's quite an expensive present. And a really good Christmas present is this. It's an automatic tying machine. It's called a max tapener. What you do is you push the tape around the stem that you want to support, and then you give it a squeeze, and it forms a staple, and it ties the stem to the cane. As easy as that. It's excellent for when you're growing sweet peas or anything that's soft, any plant that's soft, like the new growths on clematis. Now we're just going to gather these together, and I'm just going to give a couple of ties around that to hold that nice and firm. Now, ivy. I said I was going to be using ivy, but not in the way in which you would think. And this is why, because I've got some trails of ivy here that I've cut from ivy growing over a tunnel and it makes these wonderful long trails, and I'm just going to stick those into the soil. Now the great thing is, because plants are not growing at this time of the year, their sap is down. Even evergreens, they slow right up, which means that they last extremely well, and there's enough moisture in this soil for these ivy strands to last the whole winter through. I'll just get one more in here. There's also another great bonus to this, which I think you ought to know, and that is that often in the spring, when you take your pot apart, you'll find that the ivy trails have rooted, so you've got a free plant. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the trails and I'm going to just wend them around the obelisk like this. Give it a little tie at the top. Here we have another one coming round, just like a helter-skelter going up, until you get to the top, and just weave it in to hold it for a minute or two. I just hope it's going to hold. Another one. Now if you haven't got ivy to do this, you can find yourself a little evergreen conifer that perhaps you can use in the garden when it's finished its stint in the pot, and use that as a centerpiece. But the great thing about using ivy like this is it doesn't take up space, soil space in the pot. You can actually use proper plants for that. This is a bit like doing a flower arranging outside, I suppose. But great fun, because it allows you the freedom to do something slightly different. Now anchor these to the top here, so they're nice and secure. If you wanted to, you could actually tie them in properly with garden twine. Just trim the tops off there like that. Now my other ingredient that I've got is an ivy here. It's called Hedera sulphurheart. It used to be called Paddy's Pride. I rather like the idea of it being Paddy's Pride, because I have in my imagination that it was probably raised by a mad Irish gardener called Paddy, and it was his pride and joy. But there we are, never mind, things changed and it's now sulphurheart. But you can see why, because each centre of the leaf has got that lovely sulphur, lime greeny, just almost yellow, goldy, but not in any way brash. It's wonderful. These are the fruiting heads of the ivy, the fruiting branches, and as you can see, the leaf changes. If I look at the leaf of a climbing shoot on an ivy, and you'll see that it is distinctly arrow-shaped, triangular. This one is more rounded with a pointed end. That's what happens when it gets to the fruiting stage, and these flowers are now turning into fruit, and over the winter they will swell and make berries, and then in February there'll be awash with flapping pigeons feeding on the berries. But these won't do that because I've cut them off. And I'm just going to stick these in around the edges just to add a little bit of contrast. And then of course we tie the shoots into the tripod. You can already see it's really taking shape, because not only have we got different coloured leaves in here, we've got different textures too, which is important. And I think the other good thing about ivy leaves is the fact that they're shiny, they're light reflecting, and on dull winter days, especially when it drizzles, they glisten and shine and they look cheerful. Now, I said to you I'd got cyclamen. Well, I have pink flowered cyclamen, and I'm going to just place them in their pots, force them in a little bit. And the reason for that is because these, although they're really quite beautiful and rather lovely, they don't like too much frost. They also don't like too much heat. So they don't like centrally heated houses either. So don't waste your money on buying these if you like to live in a very warm room, because they like a cool windowsill, preferably not facing full sun, not in full sun. And nowadays, of course, we throw them away when they're finished flowering, but you don't have to. If you actually keep them growing, lay the pots on their side to dry out through the summer and leave them there, preferably facing the sun so they get ripening on the corm. And then in July, you take them up, turn them up the right way round, put them in a bowl of water, give them a good soaking, take them out and leave them. And then 2 or 3 weeks later, you'll see tiny little shoots coming. And so you've got your plant all over again. And then you repot the corm keeping the corm just above the soil level. Never water it from the top, because cyclamens will rot if you do that. So make sure that you submerge the pot 2/3 in water and let it soak for about 2 hours and then drain it. And that's all you really have to do. And you will find that over the years your corm gradually gets bigger and bigger until you could be like my Granny Gray, because she used to have upwards of 90 to 120 flowers on one of her cyclamen plants, which was absolutely colossal. They were that big. Fabulous. You can do it. And there we're going to put another cyclamen in there. Now that means, because they're still in their pots, if we get a sharp frost forecast, I can open the front door or go out into the garden and just pick these out and bring them inside for the evening or for that night, so that they don't get too cold. Really, that's all there is to it, but you know me. I have a few more embellishments. One of them is these lovely red dogwood stems. And I've just cut these from the garden. They are so Christmassy because they have this lovely red festive colour. And so I'm going to poke those in around the tripod like that. This is really sort of gilding the lily, although I have one more piece of gilt to add after this. My last little concession to Christmas is some white sprayed birch twigs. Now you can get these in bunches at any sort of florist, or good place to look for them is on a florist market stall, because you quite often see them for sale around Christmas time. And then don't worry about the shape at the moment, because it's looking a little bit untidy, but it won't do when I've finished. A little tie just to tidy those in and stop the wind, because we're bound to get winds at some period, sometime this time of the year. And there you have it, my winter pot. Isn't it lovely? And what did it cost? Very little. 2 cyclamen, 3 plants, the rest is just twigs. An innuendo. Right at the top. Whoops. We give it a little tie at the top and also put one in lower down just to hold it. This is one for the Christmas tape.